Hello and welcome everybody to the last Jozi.js of 2020. And what a crazy year it's been. So for those of you who have managed to stay sane so long, congratulations. You can enjoy our talks tonight, and we're just going to have a really good time. And yeah, thanks for joining us. So for those of you who celebrate Diwali, a very happy Diwali to you. I hope you had a lovely evening and event. And to those of you who are going through the Movember challenge for charity, I wish you much luck, and I hope that it's not super itchy right now. There is still not quite any definite word yet on when we can meet up in person, share some pizza, and have one or two drinks while we enjoy these talks. But hopefully you've taken the time to order some pizza for yourself. You're sitting at home and having a good time together with your loved ones, and enjoying this beautiful weather we're having here in Joburg. Please bear in mind, we do have a code of conduct. Be nice, be respectful and constructive. Let's work together, and don't be spammy. If you have any particular problems with any of the other members in Jozi.js, feel free to contact one of our organizers, our wizards. If you have a problem with any of our wizards, please feel free to contact Mike or Jerry. Speaking of our wizards, here they are. We've got wizard hats. Hopefully, these will be left under our tree at Christmas time. And next year, we can actually wear them on the video and celebrate that long anticipated tradition. A huge thank you to our sponsors, BBD. They are our food and venue sponsor under normal conditions. Inosis, who's been helpful with has been sponsoring our Zoom subscription, and Microsoft for our meetup.com subscription. We are always looking for talks. You might not think that you have the most amazing skills, but I promise you now, you know something that somebody else doesn't know, as Bill Nye says. So, if you have worked with something very recently and you're super excited about it, or you struggled with it and you feel like other people could benefit, please, please, please submit a talk. We will help you get it up to scratch if you feel that it's not great or you're not sure how to put it together. We'll sit through dry runs. We would love to have you speak at one of our events. If you are watching this, you are almost guaranteed to be on YouTube. So you can click the playlist button, which is somewhere over there, and you can see our previous talks. Alternatively, if you're watching this as a recording, feel free to use the QR code, and that'll take you straight through to our YouTube channel. As you might be familiar, for questions, we are going to be using Slido. We won't be monitoring the YouTube comments for questions. So please, please, if you have a question, submit it there. And you can also vote for the questions that you'd like to see asked the most. As this is our last Jozi.js SCI of 2020, and people might be doing road trips or traveling, I know this December is a little bit stranger than normal. Please be safe, take it easy. It's more about the journey than the destination, and stay safe. Awesome. So our first speaker is going to be talking to us about creating cross-platform mobile apps with Expo, which is part of React Native. So as somebody who uses React Native myself, I'm super excited to see this. And over to you. Thanks, Bruno.
Thank you, Ryan. Let me just do some quick setup here on my quick beer so that I can sorry.
All good. All good.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I can share my screen, right? Yeah. Okay.
Go for it.
Cool. All right. So my name is Bruno, as mentioned. Today I'll be speaking about creating cross-platform application using Expo. As Ryan mentioned, Expo is one of the tool sets that allows us to create application using React Native. So before I dive into Expo, I'll describe you guys a little bit my journey with React Native. So when I started, I didn't have like a supercomputer, and the process of me getting started with React was a little bit shaky because of the amount of configurations that I needed to do. And then I was browsing, and then I found Expo, and was at very early days of Expo, and they weren't quite promising project as they are now. So I neglected, and then I decided to use Ionic, and then I jumped back to React Native. So then I fall in love with Expo, and then I consider Expo now as being like one of the easiest ways to create or get started with React Native. So today I'll be basically speaking on what is Expo, why I think people should use Expo, and some tools that Expo has. And I'll run through a quick demo that I already set up because of the time. So what is Expo? Expo is basically like a framework that allows us to create like React Native application that uses JavaScript and TypeScript. Basically, you have like as a normal React Native application, you have one single code base being TypeScript or JavaScript, and then your application will be deployed to the various platforms, being Android, iOS, or web now. So Brent, which is one of the main contributors on Expo, he defines Expo as being the Rails of React Native. So why is that? So many people complain about the amount of configurations you need to do in React Native to get started with your project, especially if it's your first time using React Native. What Expo basically does, it reduces that friction of somebody getting started with the project. So basically, with running simple commands, you have your application all set up. You can demo to your clients if you are freelancing. You can basically get everything off the ground in one single go, and there's a lot of friction or configuration reduced. So these are like the main points. I hope I'm not speaking too fast. These are the main points of why I think people should use Expo. So Expo for me is one of the easiest and fastest ways to build and demo your mobile applications. So a lot of platforms we have there to build cross-platform apps, they are good. I can't take it from them, but with Expo, you can have the first interaction like with your app as you build it, and then you can run it straight on your devices. And then your customers can also test it as you go. Expo also has like a set of libraries or APIs that are already written, and this APIs basically allow us to speed up our development process, our development experience, because you no longer need to think, how do I read files from the library? Expo has that. How do I do Google sign in, Facebook sign in? How do I do what's this? How do I interact with some hardware parts of the device? Expo has it. Yes, they have some limitation on some of the APIs, but the community is large, and we they are trying their best to make as much APIs available as possible. The other point is like Expo help you to have your app deployed into app stores very quickly. So they have something they call the managed workflow. So when you're using the managed workflow, basically you don't have to set up a lot of the keys yourself. You just need to basically tell Expo, basically answering some questions the terminal are going to ask you. And then this will have your application built and ready to deploy and submit to the Apple stores. And then there's the last one, which is the coolest feature that I've ever experienced with Expo, is the fact that you don't have to resubmit your application if you want to do like quick updates. They created this thing called over-the-air updates, which basically allows us to download our app bundle, because Expo and React Native is JavaScript. With the right configurations, of course, you can make a change on your application, and you don't need to pass through the store review process. For example, let's say you misspelled something on your application. With a single command, you can have that thing corrected without having to wait for the 3 days or 1 day review process from Apple. So that is like a fantastic thing that help us to get our apps always up to date and running smoothly and avoiding a lot of bugs in production. So these are like the set of tools that Expo has. So we have the CLI, which is the command line. We have the Expo client, which is like a mini, I would say like a mini Google Chrome for Expo, which runs all your apps. And then we have the snack, which allows us to, if you want to test Expo and you want to have the feeling of how it is, snack will allow you to actually build your small set of applications online. And then you have the SDK, which is like the set of libraries that we have. So let me just run quickly to my demo so that I have time to answer some questions. So first, I'll just show you guys, like, this is the official website for Expo, and this is the snack I was talking about. Basically, this code that is here, if I change and say, and then save, it automatically updates here, and I'm testing Expo live. You can run it into an into a emulator if you want, or run it into your device if you have an Expo account created. You also have the iOS emulator here. There's a lot of, there's 15 people testing it currently. You can save this snack into your GitHub, into your account, and you can actually make use of it very, very well. So, and then if you go to the official documentation, you basically will see how to start with Expo. After you install it, you pretty much have all you need, basically. So if we run like Expo init, and then give the name of our project, Expo will basically prompt us with some options. The managed workflow is where you basically allow Expo to have all configurations set for you. So you have like a tab template, we have a blank template with TypeScript, we have a blank template with normal JavaScript. And then the bare workflow is when you just want to use something they call Expo Uni modules, which is a part of the SDK, but you don't want Expo to handle the whole project for you. So you use the bare workflow so that you don't have to deal with some of the limitation that Expo has. So I won't run it now. I have a project here already set. So if I run Expo start, right? I won't go through the code because it's I believe it's just a normal React Native project. And for those who use React Native, bare React Native, you notice that you don't have like the Metro bundle configuration there. So Expo already deals with it for you, so you don't have to think about it. So now that I'm running my terminal, I started the project. If you are using an Android device or iOS device, you can scan this QR code and you can basically have the app running on your device. So I have, this is my phone, right? And then I'll start my simulator. I won't start my Android Studio because my computer will get slow. So this installs Expo application on your simulator, and then you have the app starting. Sorry, this is like from the other project. So this is running. If I press here, it's also starting on my phone. So basically, I can test the app, have how it see how it will basically behave on the device as I build it. So I don't need to wait until production or staging days to see how the application will behave. So with this, this is Expo client basically that is running the application now. So I have the possibility to run the project. So, and then if you see here on the command list, we can press like D to display like the development tool, which will allow us to monitor what we are doing. So here we can use like, it shows how you can connect. There's a simple command here to publish your application, which will be under your account. Sorry, this is my internet now. So I'll be under your account. And then you can basically see, no, demos always fail, why? So I think it will work now. Yeah, as you guys can see, like it's the same application. I'm testing it in both environments. The behavior is the same. And I am basically, if I change something in the code, let's say I'll add like a single text, for example. Right, you see both environments update, and then you have the application, the update that I've just made. Actually, let me just put it out here. So both environments are behaving the same way. And then we have Expo Web. If I press or enter W on my terminal, this will create the web version of this app that I have. So I don't need to, it's the same code base, basically. Everything is the same. And then the application just works on every environment that I have. So this is basically the same application that I'm showing to you guys. This is the same app. It's running on web, my device. And then if one of you guys, for example, want to test it right now, I just change this to the tunnel and allow you guys to, if you guys have had like Expo client, to scan this QR code, and then you can test with me live, and it just works. So this is basically one of the amazing things about Expo. For Expo Web, there's a few limitations, of course, because it's a new project, and then there are some configurations that we will have to do ourselves to be able to accommodate the different environments. So, for example, if you see, if I press here the model, the image will show here. So, and when I'm on the devices, the model will display fine. So I need to put some constraints to check which environment I'm under, and then make some configurations. Because of time, I couldn't fix that, but I just wanted also to show that you need to do some configurations by yourself to make everything work smoothly on every environment. But of course, it's a nice start. And yeah, I believe this is basically Expo. I hope I didn't rush too much. Some people would ask me if they are working. Expo is only available for React Native. I would say yes for now. And then the team is very much very open. I myself made some contributions on the project. They review your PRs. The community is very open. They will basically make you feel as you're like another wizard from the team, and you'll just basically have fun with them and hack and try to create new solutions. So that's basically it for today. I hope I didn't rush because I speak too fast when I'm a bit shaky. So yeah, now I'm open for questions.
Thanks. That was awesome. I think maybe I should switch from building the standard old style React Native apps to using Expo. It looks like a nice way to get started really quickly. Yes. Okay, so questions. We have some questions here. First question. Why did you switch to Ionic? That was, I think that you mentioned that at the very beginning of your talk. And then the second part of that, and why did you switch back to React Native?
So when I switched to Ionic, wasn't really my personal option. It was because of a project that I needed to finalize. And the reason why I went back to React Native is because Ionic wouldn't give me the native sense of how of building a mobile application, because Ionic basically uses the web view. I might be wrong. I don't know if they changed that, but they uses a web view to render your application, where React uses it just transpiles the views into the native components. So you're actually building a native application. So that's why I made a change.
Yeah, I stand to be corrected. The first version of Ionic definitely used a web view. I think they're doing something similar now to React Native, if I'm not mistaken. And Mike's giving me the head shake, so that looks good. Then next question, is Expo a library on top of React Native? Why would you use it rather than just using React Native without it?
As I explained throughout it's not only, I wouldn't consider Expo as being like a library. I'll consider it as being like a whole framework, because even if you go now into the React Native official website, you'll see that they actually advise people to start using Expo more, because the Expo team just made things much easier and faster to get someone started with Expo. I mean, with React Native. It's the same framework, it's the same tools, it's the same code that you are writing, but you don't need necessarily to think about configurations. So yeah. You are not, I mean, Ryan, you do the normal React Native. So dealing with Metro bundlers and everything, just blocks. If you it's your first time, you'll be blocked. But Expo has, this is a given. You have everything there.
Yeah, as somebody who started on React Native in version 0.34 and went through a lot of upgrades, and now I'm using Hermes, which is the upgraded engine. Every time you try and upgrade, it is an absolute nightmare, and you dread it and you put it off. And now, the way I'm seeing this is like Expo is like a really cool cookbook. It's like, here's everything, do it.
Yeah, imagine now to upgrade your React Native apps. I just did an upgrade earlier this afternoon. I just needed to run Expo upgrade and everything was updated.
Oh, that sounds like a pleasure. Last question we have. What limitations does Expo have? Is there any reason not to use Expo when building a React Native app?
Yes, I'll give you an example of something the community complains a lot. Is the support to Bluetooth. So if you want to build an application that has support to Bluetooth, don't use Expo. So there are some APIs that would make you not use Expo, basically. So I learned it from the projects, and also from hearing another devs that use Expo saying the same thing. Before you decide either if you're going to use Expo or the bare React Native, make sure you understand the specs of the project. Because down the line, if you need to eject from Expo, now it's much better, but I did it once, it's not fun. So yeah, just be sure on what are the requirements, and then there's a tracking list. I can share the link on the community or on the meetup that tells us which APIs Expo has support and which one
yeah,
they
that'd
are
be
working.
great. We'll add it to the YouTube comments as well. Description,
Yes.
I mean. Thank you.
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks. That was really, really great. If you wouldn't mind, just stop sharing your screen. Next up, we have Ire, who's going to be talking to us about how I leverage the JAMStack for progressive enhancement, which sounds super awesome, and it's definitely something I haven't done. So I'm going to be paying close attention there. Without further ado.
Hi, everyone. Okay, let me try and share my screen. Can you see my screen? Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm here to tell you about how I leverage JAMStack for progressive enhancement. And basically, it's just talking about a project of mine and how I was able to, I guess, use the concept of progressive enhancement to try and make it better, right? So just a bit about myself. I'm a front-end developer and UI designer. I'm co-founder of Bitcoins, which is a cryptocurrency exchange based in Nigeria. And I'm from Nigeria as well, although I haven't been there for most of this year because of, the apocalypse. And yeah, I'm also a Google Web expert. Yeah, and I write on my blog, which is called Bits of Code, which I will get into in a bit. So just a bit of background. So way back in like 2006, I found this metric that said like 73% of websites were reliant on JavaScript for their core functionality, which essentially means that if JavaScript was for whatever reason disabled in your browser, you wouldn't be able to do like the majority the primary function of the majority of websites at the time. And this was even before like front-end frameworks were even a thing, like Angular wasn't even launched at this point. So I haven't really been able to find more up-to-date data on this, but I can only imagine that this number is even higher. And occasionally I like to try and disable JavaScript in my browser to see how different sites work. And this is something anyone can do, obviously. And as you expect, some websites like kind of completely break, like Facebook. I feel like they don't really make an attempt. They just say JavaScript is required, and that's basically it. And that's just kind of it. And surprisingly, some websites have like even a better experience than normal because you don't get all of these like pop-ups and all these like, I guess, random things happening. And although this like reliance on JavaScript has kind of allowed us to build a lot of incredible things, there's obviously some downsides to it as well. So in a lot of cases, performance suffers, right? Especially when large frameworks are used for sites that could just be like a static thing. And accessibility can also become a problem, especially in single page applications where the controls and navigation may not really be handled properly. And of course, progressive enhancement is usually an afterthought. So instead of starting with a base experience that works for everyone and kind of building up, we usually start with a experience that requires JavaScript. And then only in some cases, we like kind of backtrack to try and figure it out. But this isn't like some witch hunt to say never use JavaScript for anything. And it's not even to shame any of these websites as being horrible or anything, because there are definitely cases where you just need JavaScript. Like at Bitcoins, even though the main like marketing, I guess, website is accessible to everyone, we require JavaScript for like when you log in and stuff, because you can't really like buy and sell and trade and things without like JavaScript, because there's like a lot of complexity to it. So this isn't about saying like don't use JavaScript. It's actually about saying maybe we can use JavaScript and like the JAMStack to try to improve a lot of the issues that like JavaScript itself raises. So this is kind of what this talk is about. This is like another title, I guess, going ham with the JAMStack. I just thought that was funny. So it's basically like a case study of how I was able to use JAMStack tools like Cloudinary, Puppeteer, and Cloudflare in particular to improve the experience for like non-JavaScript users. And this kind of all starts with like my blog. As I mentioned, I write like articles related to front-end development. And I would typically or frequently want to reference and display information from caniuse.com. So what I did was I created this embed that kind of pulls information from Caniuse and displays it in this like interactive table thing. And the way it works is that you'll first obviously include this script wherever in your documents, then you would place this code wherever you want the embed to show. And I have like a website you can use to kind of generate this, so you don't have to like manually type it out or anything. And it's basically just like a class, then like the feature ID from Caniuse, and then this is like fallback data. So the script then sort of like swaps out this for the actual like live embed. And this is kind of like where the problem starts, because if someone were to visit my blog without JavaScript enabled, they'll just see that like fallback text that's kind of just waiting for the script to come in and do its thing. But obviously that doesn't actually happen. And this isn't just a problem for browsers with like JavaScript disabled, which like that might not be even like a large enough user base for you if you don't think like that's as important for your particular use case. But you can think about like slow connections. So even if the embed eventually loads, like the user might still have to see that fallback for like a few seconds or even minutes, depending on how bad the connection actually is. And then there's places where JavaScript just isn't available. Like I send out each article as an email as well, and obviously the embed just doesn't work in that kind of case. So I was thinking of how to solve this problem, and I came up with a solution that involved leveraging these two tools to kind of improve the experience. So I would take like the live HTML page embed and then use Puppeteer to convert it into a screenshot and then host that on Cloudinary. And then that image could then be used as like a fallback instead of just like the plain text. So instead of anyone seeing this on the left, they would see like an actual image, right? So just to kind of show how like I did that. So the first part is using Puppeteer to get a screenshot of the embed. And the Puppeteer library is actually really nice. And it's probably maybe one of my favorite libraries, because it makes everything that feels kind of complex, like headless browsers and all of that, it makes it like relatively like simple. So basically first we just import the Puppeteer node library, and then we create a new browser. And then I just have some extra settings for the dimensions of the browser. Then we just load a new page, and then the URL, the embed URL is basically just like the URL to the page where the embed is. And then I'm using this like network idle 2 setting to just let Puppeteer know that I want to wait until everything's fully loaded before like moving on. And then you just take the screenshot and then at the end close the browser. Then the next part is uploading that image to Cloudinary. So again, like just importing the library and doing any kind of like config and stuff like that. Then I'm using this upload stream method to actually upload it, and then passing in the screenshot variable from the previous section. And then when it's done, I just have access to the like URL on Cloudinary. So when using the embed on like the blog, instead of this fallback text that we had before, which wasn't ideal, we can then just include like an image of that fallback instead. And even better, because we're using Cloudinary, we actually now automatically have access to all different types of file types and sizes to make it an even better experience. So you can have like the WebP for browsers that support that, or PNG or JPEG, or basically whatever you want. So now if you were to visit the blog without having like JavaScript or like slow connection, or if it's like sending out in via like the emails, you'll just see like the image instead. And creating one of these is actually like totally abstracted. So like I said, I have a website you can go to that'll just generate all of this for you. So you just put in what feature that you want, and you can kind of like figure out like what you want to display. Then you just click generate, and eventually it will show all of that information for you. So like, I guess it kind of seems as if we've solved the problem. We can like celebrate that we solved the problem, but obviously no. So the solution only sort of solves maybe like half of the problem. And the problem is that like, I mean, we can kind of go back a bit first. So like what happens is, like I said, you want to display this live, can I use data on your blog or whatever? So you want to create this live embed, but that fallback screenshot is technically going to be stuck at a particular date wherever you actually like create it, right? So although the full experience, like when the embed loads, is like that nice live up-to-date data, the fallback data could be from like weeks or months or years ago. And I kind of feel like that's more of a maybe like graceful degradation approach rather than like progressive enhancement. Because I feel like a progressive enhancement approach would be to try to provide that same data that like the user is expecting. So you want an image that's essentially like the same value as the live embed. So I again like went back to the drawing board to see what I could do. And luckily I actually already had all the main parts done. I just kind of needed to take like an extra step. So the solution that I came up with would be to sort of like actually capture a screenshot of basically all the features possible and do this every single day. And then I would provide a URL that a user could use that never changes. And then I would use Cloudflare redirects to kind of connect the pieces together. So a user or anybody will be able to do something like this. So just going to /cssgrid.png or something, and the result will be an image that actually changes every single day without having to change the URL. So let's just show how I was able to do that. So with last time, the first step is to capture the screenshots of the embed page, but instead of doing it for just the one page, we do it for basically all of the 488 features on Can I Use. So I would basically just get the list of the feature IDs from their API, and then I'll loop through each feature and then change the embed URL based on the feature ID. And then just capture the screenshot in the same way as usual. And then I'm just saving it to like an array so that we can use it again later. And then next, I upload all of those images to Cloudinary. So same thing, just looping through all of those screenshots that we had, and then just putting the feature ID as like the name. So you can just access it the same way you probably do on like caniuse.com as well. And then like in the previous section, just saving them into an array so that we can have them all accessible. So when all the images are uploaded, you get a URL that kind of looks something like this for each image. And at this point, it's kind of important to like break down the URL to understand how the next phase of this goes. So first of all, you obviously have just like the Cloudinary domain name. Then you have your cloud name, which is like your user account essentially. Then you have like the resource type, delivery type. I get resource type. I don't think I still understand what delivery type is, but I don't know, you just put it there. And then the version number. And this is like an important part to note because whenever you upload something to Cloudinary, they assign a version number to that image. And it's sort of to like assist with caching. So once you access an image by a particular version number, it's like cached. And if you change that version number, then it'll try and get whatever the latest version of that image is. But it's also possible to actually just access the image without adding a version number at all. But that is also technically a cached version. So it will take a while to update if you're like doing it every single day, which as I said, that's kind of what I'm doing. So it does sort of present a problem. And then the final thing to note about the version number is that it doesn't actually have to be the one that you're given at first. You can actually just use any random number that you want. And this will also be important for the next stage, which I will explain in a bit. And then finally, it's just like the folder that you set it in, and then the file name, and then the extension. So although like the top is the URL that we actually get from Cloudinary, what I actually wanted is for people to be able to use the bottom thing, which is like a lot shorter, a lot easier to just like understand. And also I don't necessarily want people just accessing my Cloudinary link directly. Like maybe I want to change like the cloud name, maybe I want to change where it's hosted, things like that. So I wanted it to sort of be separate. And that's where Cloudflare, oh God, it's always so difficult to say this, Cloudflare, that's where they come in. So I can create a page rule for my domain that will map a certain URL pattern onto another URL pattern. So I can have like the sort of URL that I want, and then it'll basically just map to that. And it's just kind of like expanding it essentially. It's almost like a URL shortener in a way. But like the problem with this is that like the version number is technically going to be hard coded. So that means that the image will maybe never actually be updated because we're always trying to access the image cached at that particular version. And like I said, because the version number is optional, I could remove it, but without adding a version number, it might take a while for the image to like fetch the new version. And because I'm like updating the image every single day, it needs to be updated like immediately. So what I kind of needed to do was to find a way to actually update that version number on Cloudflare every time the image is updated. And at first I thought like, oh, okay, I can just go to Cloudflare and try and update it myself. But then I quickly realized I'm not going to do that every day for the rest of my life. So I needed to like find a way to do it like programmatically. So we just have a little bit more code to actually make that happen. So what I needed to do is use the Cloudflare API. So luckily they do have an API that I can use to just update page rules or anything. So this is just like the part that's relevant. So what I'm just going to do is update the URL of that page rule. And then I used just like a timestamp actually, because it's not actually relevant which one I use. I just need to make sure it's like a unique one every single day. So I thought like timestamp is a good way to do that. So that's how this number is going to change every single time that I upload the new image. So this is kind of like the entirety of what I run like step by step. So first I'm getting like that list of features from Can I Use, then I'm using Puppeteer to take the screenshots of all the features, and then I use Cloudinary to upload all of those. And then at the very end, then I just update the Cloudflare page rule so that it knows to like reset the cache basically. Oh, I missed this. Yeah, and basically all of that is just bundled as a job that's scheduled on Heroku to run like every day. I could choose to run it any number of like frequency that I wanted, but I just figured every day is like pretty safe. Although most things don't even change every day, I just felt like I can, so I might as well do it. So now when you create the embed, it already like by default is going to include that live image as a fallback, but I'm also like giving you the option to create like a static image if you do actually want that, because you might just want to capture what is the feature states at like this particular date or time. And you can also just use the image alone if you want, instead of using the full like interactive embed thing. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else to see here. So now we can actually fully celebrate because we've created something that works well in the like fallback and the full experience. So thank you. Yeah, I hope you found this as like a really interesting use case of Cloudinary and the JAMStack and all of that stuff. It was exciting for me to work on myself. So yeah, and I've written a bunch of articles about it as well. So you can find them in this link, and I'll share these slides online at some point. So thank you.
Awesome. We'll put those links that you're going to send into the video description. That was crazy amazing. So good job on that.
Thanks.
Awesome. So we have one question so far. So could you do something similar, but instead of an image, create an HTML table that looks like something on caniuse.com site?
Yeah, so that's basically what the live embed is actually. It is like an HTML table, but it's just that it's like hosted somewhere. And because of the way the embed works, because it requires JavaScript to like do all that, I guess, magic for you. That's why I had to do it this way. But you could also just directly access that page, and you wouldn't need like the images either.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. So it's like the image is kind of that last line of defense if the JavaScript is turned off and they've turned everything else off, or whatever the environment might be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the main reason it actually came up for me was like the emails, because I couldn't even obviously link to the thing in the email either. And I was finding myself having to just go and take screenshots manually. And I thought, oh, okay, I can try and make this just a thing.
Okay, so I guess even though it's an image in the email as the fallback, if the user doesn't click download pictures, they're not going to see it. But you know, that's kind of up to them to decide.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We have another question. How do you handle different mobile or desktop layouts?
Yeah, that's one thing I have been thinking of with the images, like to potentially also make them sort of responsive. So just to have like a mobile version and a desktop version. And that is technically something I could do, because with Puppeteer, by me defining the viewports, I'm saying like, this is actually the layout I want. But the embed itself is already responsive. So I could technically just take a second batch and just resize like the viewports to the smaller size and then make that like a smaller thing. And I thought like something even weirder would be to even make that like almost responsive. Because I think with Cloudflare or with Cloudinary rather, you can sort of serve different images depending on the viewport of the device that's like requesting it. So I think that you can actually make it a bit, you can actually just make it, I could just send the mobile one if I see that I'm getting a request from a mobile device or something like that. But I haven't gone down that path yet. But I think that would be like a cool addition to do that.
That would be pretty impressive. Even more impressive than what you've already done. And I guess you could also maybe look at maybe doing some sort of media query as well, if that option wasn't available for you. But I'm not super familiar with those. I just use it as a magic word when somebody says it needs to be responsive.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was really, really great. Thank you so much to both of our speakers and to all of you at home or wherever you might be for joining in on this, the last Jozi.js of 2020. May you have a beautiful festive season. See the people that you love. And may 2021 be infinitely better than 2020 was. Thank you all for joining us. Stay safe and keep well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.